Hello, welcome to episode 24 of the SWR Darts Coaching podcast. With myself, Sean, a PDPA Level 1 darts coach, JDC Level 2, SiteRight accredited, and also darts site trained. I'm a full-time professional darts coach based here in the UK. I think I briefly touched on it in episode 23, and I said I would do this podcast, and it's one I've been wanting to do for a while. And it's the topic of offensive versus defensive darts players. So this is something that I think is quite topical. It's something that I think is an interesting debate between darts players, especially over the last sort of month or so. I've been looking across darts players. You know, when I have players come for coaching, a couple of the things that I look at early doors is, you know, is the player, you know, introvert, extrovert? How are they approaching it? What's their approach to their training? Do they have a set system that they train to? You know, can they train solo? Are they a player that can, you know, spend that hour standing there at the hockey training solo? And then, you know, we build on from there. And what I've started doing now is I'm looking at players and I'm seeing whether they're offensive or defensive. It is a mindset. I've got no doubt about that. I've got some notes in front of me that I've made over the last few weeks. Can you coach both of them? Yes, very much so. When do you need to be offensive and defensive? I think that's more to the point of what I'm trying to get into this podcast here. And I know there'll be some people who will listen to this and go, that's not, you know, that's a load of tripe in a way. But I don't think it is. I think we have got to look at the way we play darts. I always talk about in these podcasts about how we train. What are we training? How do we train? And I think now we've got to go to the next level of saying, if we are an offensive darts player, you know, that's the way we've got to train. But can we take defensive elements into our training as well and look at some defensive elements? And if you're a defensive darts player, which I am, I'm a defensive darts player, I've never denied that. You know, I then have to look at offensive attacking options when needed, because you've got to have both in your locker, I think, as a darts player as well. I don't think there's that one glove fits all when it comes to being offensive and defensive. I think you have got to have both, but you're probably going to have more 70% of one than the other. Let's start with an offensive-based darts player. So, what is an offensive style player? Well, their mindset is aggressive, it's proactive, it's momentum driven. You know, these are the type of players that are coming up straight away and they're attacking that dartboard every time. There's not a lot of sort of time taken to think about what they're going for. Typical behaviours in an offensive dart player, you know, they're going straight for the big scores, treble 20, treble 19, even when they're under pressure. They take on the riskier checkouts. So anything sort of 130 or above, you know, they're going for them checkouts. They've got a fast pace. They trust their rhythm. They trust their repetition. They're trusting their brain and their mindset to continue that repetition. Even if that first one's not gone where they want it to, they ain't stopping. They're going to attack it. They are the ones that want to control the leg. They want to be in front in every leg. And yeah, we want to be in front, but sometimes we aren't going to be in front. But then we're pushing. They're pushing the pace of the opponent to get in front. So if you've got a player who's, you know, not going really at your pace, you'll be trying to force them into your pace by, you know, stepping up straight behind him and you get making them feel a little bit uncomfortable sometimes. But there are strengths and weaknesses to being an offensive player as there is to being a defensive player when we get there. The strength is that if you can control that repetition throwing, you are going to score higher. Your power scoring is going to be a lot better. You'll be able to hopefully get down quicker in legs and finish in more minimum darts, which is, again, what the aim of the game is. I'm not going to sit here and say it's not. But if we are in a leg whereby we've got 3 darts, you'll be looking to try and use 2 out of the 3 to finish the leg, whereas the defensive player will be looking to use all 3, maybe for the setup. And of course, you're thriving on your confidence and everything. That sort of rhythm and confidence which a dart player needs. What are the weaknesses, though, of being an offensive player? Well, for me, it is that risk-taking. Going for the bigger checkouts, going for that treble, going for the bull. They're the risks that we're getting into there. When your rhythm's broken, you struggle. You can't comprehend when that rhythm is broken. You need to be rapid. You will go for a risk shot, even if you know it's wrong, you'll still go for it. Forcing the shot a lot of the time. The other thing I notice with a lot of offensive players is, their arm doesn't always go all the way through on that smooth motion. They'll quickly stab it out sometimes because they want to get the rhythm, want to get the motion going as quick as they can. That is an offensive player. That is an offensive darts player at the best. So, defensive style player. Again, a mindset is more measured. It's more controlled. We're talking strategy here. We're looking at playing this game in a more controlled manner. Typical behaviours of that defensive player is they're going to play more percentage-based darts. So they're going to get down to their checkouts and they're going to be looking at what their opponent's sitting on. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute or two. But they're going to be playing on percentages. They'll go for the safest setups. Instead of they will lay up for the 2-dart finish instead of attacking a difficult treble. And what I mean by that is if they've got 71, a defensive dart player is going to go for the bigs. They're going to go for a big 11, maybe a big 20 for tops. They're not going to necessarily attack a treble for a double. If they attack a treble and they hit a single, the chances are they may then look at a double-double option. The double of the single they've just hit for another double. That is an offensive way of doing it, but we're talking defensive here. They're going to go for that big automatically. They're going to have a slower, more deliberate pace. So they're going to focus heavily on the routine of what they do, making sure that their arm's going all the way through. They're committing that line of throw, but in a nice, controlled manner. They're not going to be rushing down for their next dart. They're going to keep that nice throw every time going through. They're going to look to control, maintain the control and limit as many mistakes as they can get. And they will wait for their opponent. And what I mean by that is a defensive-based darts player will stand back and let their player, their opponent, take their darts out of the board and move out the line of sight, and then they'll go into their preparation or pre-throw. I always talk about the pre-throw a lot in my sessions, and the pre-throw for me is an important part that darts players do miss out on and do lack on. With a defensive-based player, they're going to wait. They're going to let that player get their darts, move out the line of sight, and as they're walking back up the hockey on the side, they're going to be passing shoulders just before they get to the hockey. A lot of people will consider a defensive player sometimes slow, and they're not slow. They're methodical in their preparation. What is the strength of a defensive player? For me, it's consistent and steady. Consistent and steady, very hard to mentally break, because you'll keep that level head. You'll know where you're going for. You'll know what you're trying to get to. And they will also be the players that will grind out the legs. If they are well behind, they're just going to keep going. They're not going to be thinking about, I've got to hit a treble, I've got to hit the 180s, I've got to hit the 140s. They'll just be staying steady within their rhythm, within their motion, to get that score down to a manageable area for them. Weaknesses of a defensive player? Well, explosive goals, explosive scoring can sometimes be one of the main weaknesses of a defensive player, because they won't be chasing after that treble. They'll be happy to get the 3 in the big. If they're going at the 20s, they'll be happy to get the 3 in the big 20, not bothered whereabout they are as well. They will be outpaced. They will be outpaced by the aggressive player. Getting outpaced is not something that they'll bother them. As a defensive player with the right mindset, they'll just go into their flow. They really will. Sometimes, though, being a defensive player, you do give up opportunities to go for the nice big finishes. You give up opportunities to get that average up to a higher standard, and that is what a defensive player is giving up on more than anything. If I'm coming to the dartboard as a defensive player, I'm looking at what I've got. I'm going to look at what my opponent's got, and then I'm going to start working out the percentages of what I need to do. Am I near a finish? Well, yes, I am near a finish. Is my opponent near a finish? No, he isn't. So at that stage, then I'm going to start working out the percentages of where I need to be. And I'm going to talk about the percentages next. So the percentages of being an offensive and defensive-based darts player is very much about thinking about what the checkout is that the play you've got and what your opponent's got. Let's be honest. if 170 is on the table or on the scoreboard, the offensive player and the defensive player are probably both thinking the same at this point. There's only one way to go for it. So, yes, the offensive player is going to go treble 20, but the only option, isn't it? But then when they miss, they're probably going to get a little bit annoyed because they've missed, taking out the big fish. Whereas the defensive player isn't really looking to attack it. If they've hit the single 20, they're just going to stay there nice and smooth because they were probably looking in their mind to go for that 100 score anyway. Or at least bring it down into a checkout percentage that they can deal with. There are other numbers we can look at here as well. So, just for instance, if, let's say, 104 comes into play. So, 104, everyone's got their own routes for going for 104. Most darts players, I would say, as an offensive approach, will go treble 18, 18, double 16 maybe. Or you might go treble 18, 10 for tops. Whichever your preference is for that finish. Whereas the defensive player, they're going to be looking probably at going 20s first route again. Why? Well, single 20 is going to leave him 84 here, isn't it? So then he's got this option of, again, where does he want to go? Is he going treble 16, double 18? You don't know. It's his personal preference route there. But at the same time, he's looking at 104 as a defensive player. And they're probably thinking, well, in theory, there is an 8% chance of checking that out. Now, for those who follow me on social media, most of you will know I've done a lot of things recently where I've been taking all the PDC darts checkouts from a tournament, and I've been putting them into a table and working out what the most popular are, what the least popular are, what percentage in brackets. And this is what I mean when I come to talking about percentages for a defensive player and what they're going to go and attack. As I stand here, recording this on the 16th of December 2025, these are the stats from the current PDC Worlds. I take 4 checkout brackets, which is 2 to 55, 56 to 85, 86 to 119, and 120 to 170. As we stand at the moment in this tournament, 4.86% of checkouts have been between 120 and 170. 8.91% have been between 86 and 119. 20.24% have been between 56 and 85. And as I already knew, 65.99% of checkouts have been between 2 and 55. So your defensive-based darts player at 104 is automatically thinking to himself, this is an 8% checkout. I need to get this down to where I'm comfortable, but what's my opponent on? So at that point then, a defensive-based darts player is going to be starting to look at what their opponent's on. Their opponent might be sitting on 146, 147. So he's going to be thinking, or she's going to be thinking at that point, well, yeah, I'm on an 8% chance of checking out. They're on like the 4% chance of checking out. So I'm going to go a little bit more defensive on this 104 approach, i.e. going the 20s route. But the defensive-based darts player is trying to bring their score under 50, under 55 effectively for the way I look at the percentages. But that's what they're looking to do. They're just trying to bring it down. Not and minimalise the use of the ball, smallest area on the dartboard. Whereas the offensive player is going to be using the ball more often. They're going to be after that ball because their priority is winning the leg in the quickest way possible, not in the safest way possible. And there is them elements there, don't forget. There is a safe approach and there is a risk approach. Your aim of darts isn't to get a high average. Your aim of darts is to get to 0 before your opponent and get the tick in the box. And that's where we're getting lost with darts. I say to a lot of people time and time again, what brings your average down? The end game, the checkouts. Why does that bring your game down? Because if you're an offensive player, you're trying to take out these big checkouts instead of just looking at the bigger picture and trying to get under, the 55 mark. Where under 55, we know 65.99% of checkouts are getting checked out in that area. So that should be where we're targeting ourselves. But then when I speak to people, I go, how do you work your setups? How do you work your checkouts? All I ever hear is I start on 121. So 121 is in the 4.86% bracket right now. Why are we starting there? 121 is great, don't get me wrong. But Under 55 is where we should be looking and where we want to be looking as darts players. That's the area we should be focusing on, and sadly we aren't. So going back to obviously the examples, as I say there, the 1-2-1, the offensive player is going to obviously look to finish it on the ball. There's no doubt about it. Everyone's got their own personal routes for 1-2-1 as well. Most common, obviously, is first dart going up towards the treble 20. If you hit the single 20, obviously, you're leaving yourself 101. So 9 times out of 10, they're going to come down for treble 17 for the ball. If the defensive player's got his 1-2-1, I would imagine they are going to go, right, I will go at the 20s again. I'll hit a single 20, I'm on 101 now. Now I'm going to play the percentages and look at where my opponent is, what score my opponent's on. So let's flip this on its head a little bit. I'm the defensive player, I've gone for the 1-2-1, I've gone for the 20. I've hit single 20, I've got 101. My opponent is sitting on, let's just pick a random number, 45. So 45 falls into that short, that high percentage bracket that we know. So now as a defensive player, this is where I've got to make my decision. Do I go offensive and go down, treble 17 for the ball route? Or do I now look at it and go, well, actually, I'm just going to go and stay safe here and probably aim for another 20. Probably aim up there. The chances are, myself personally, I would probably go down to the 17s. I'm behind in the leg and I'm in this area now where I need to look at it. But they're on 45, so we know that they are potentially only going to have 2 darts to hit the double. But if I'm coming back and I've left myself something that's a little more obscure to go for, I'm then giving myself that little bit of work. So I want to play the mindset of, I want to come back to the oche if they have missed their 2 darts at the double, if it is 2 they get, for me to come back to the oche with an approach to the checkout that I'm comfortable with. So I'm on this 101 with 2 darts in hand. Is my next dart then going to go maybe at 11 for then go back upstairs to the 20s? Or am I going to throw another dart at single 20 to leave myself 81? To then think to myself at this point, I'm on 81 now. Do I go 11 to 70? So I'm coming back for a safer option with the 70. Or am I going to attack it? And they're the decisions you make in your training more than anything. Them are the decisions, and that's what you should be training as a dart player, which way you're going to attack it, which way your mindset is going to work. But I think you've also got to get to a stage whereby you as the dart player know if you are defensive or offensive. And there'll be a lot of people who will listen to this who I think will be both. But you'll all be going, I'm offensive, this is just daft, you can't be defensive, why be defensive? If I'm on 101, or 1-2-1, let's go back to. If I'm on the 1-2-1, my opponent is currently sitting in 200s, plus 200 score, I'm not going to attack it because I'm not after the average. I'm after getting to 0 and getting the tick in the box. So I'm not going to attack that 1-2-1 in an offensive style because all I want to do is come back to the oche and take out an easier finish for me, which for me is that 2 to 55 bracket, where we know that 65, nearly 66% at the moment of finishes have been in that area. So for me as a player training, I'm training them numbers. Do I know my bigger checkouts? Yeah, of course I do. But the point is, I'm not focusing on them bigger numbers. If they came off, fantastic. But it's the little numbers that are going to win most games. You've got to train your doubles. All this is all relevant about talking offensive and defense, but also how you train your doubles is another element of if you're an offensive or defensive based darts player. An offensive player will go around the world on doubles, and if they come inside and hit single 1, say, or single 2, they'll carry on throwing for the double until they get the double to move on. Whereas a defensive player would throw at the double 1, say, for instance, hit the inside single 1, retrieve the dart, and go back to trying again, or move to the double 2. Because they'll try and focus their attack on hitting the double first time. Not this training style of, well, we'll just keep throwing until we get the double to move on. I talk about this quite a lot in the coaching plans that I do with players, that when we're training doubles, we shouldn't be allowing ourselves to have all these darts at a double if we've busted the score or we've hit the wrong section. We should be attacking. But that then becomes a defensive approach to training, where the attacking approach to training, is where you're just constantly attacking that number. I wonder, and take a look, think to yourself, are you an offensive darts player or are you a defensive darts player? Can there be a world where you can do both? And my answer to that is yes, there is. Can you win legs being defensive? 100%. I've done it. I've proven it. The mindset is the biggest issue with this. As a defensive player, their key traits is, like I said, minimising the reliance on the ball, prioritises checkouts that have got recovery darts, potentially, and will sacrifice that finish to gain control. Whereas the offensive player, they're looking to maybe get down to the ball, smallest target on the dartboard, don't forget. They're after winning the leg as quickly as they can, and they're less concerned with the leave more than anything. I also find with an offensive player, and I worked with one a few weeks back, was when he was going for his finishes, he knew them, but the moment he would hit the wrong treble or the wrong single or a big of the treble he was after, his game had then crumbled. He didn't know what to go for, whereas that defensive player does, because they're taking their time that little bit more. And in darts, it is about time. It is about the amount of time you take on the throw. That's what I want to talk about today. That's the bulk of this podcast episode. Offensive player, darts player against a defensive darts player. Which one are you? Which camp are you in? Let me know. Are you an offensive-based darts player or are you a defensive-based darts player? And don't forget, you can win with both. Okay, so we're entering into the final part of the podcast, and it's the part that I'm now going to do in every podcast. And it's taking one of the training games from my website and just giving you the idea of how it works. The interesting thing now is I've now got a training game of the month section on the website. And through a little bit of coding and a little bit of AI work, I have managed to create it so that you can actually go on the website now and you can actually track the score. So this podcast episode, we're going to talk about game number 14, which is the Steady 20 game. How the Steady 20 game works is dead simple. You're going to start on 10 points. So you give yourself 10 points. Your goal is to reach 25 to win the game. However, if you hit 0, you have lost the game. Okay. We can only score on the 20s, and there's a certain amount we can do. So if we score just like 120 in there, we don't get nothing for that. We get 2 20s in there, which would be 40 points. We don't get nothing for that either. If we hit 3 darts in the 20 section for a score of 60, we get a point. Okay, lovely. Absolutely wonderful. But we are also going to get penalties for darts that land anywhere other than the 20 section on their startboard. And what I mean by that, so if your dart lands anywhere, I call it the northern hemisphere of the board. So basically the 1, 18, 4, 13, 14, 9, 12, 5 sections, you lose 2 points for that dart. Any of your darts land in the lower half of the board, so of course 11, 8, 16, 7, 19, 3, 17, 2, 15, 10 and 6, you lose 3 points. If your dart lands in the ball of the outer point, you lose a point. So you're only gaining points for darts that land in the 20 and hit a score within that 20. So a 20 or a 40 score, no points. A 60 is a point. If you score 80 or 100, you'll get 2 points. 120 or 140 is 3 points. If you get 160, it's 4 points. And if you hit a 180, you get 5 points. But the way the game effectively works is, let's say that you came up and your first visit was big 20, big 20, big 20. We've got a score of 60 there. So that gives us a point now, so we're on 11 points. Next visit, you come up, you hit treble 20, you hit single 20, now you hit single 5. Okay? You get no points for that visit, because you got the 2 points for the 80, but you then lose 2 points because one dart landed in the 5. So you get no score there. So your score won't go up and your score won't go down. Now, let's say that you hit a single 5, a treble 5, and a single 20. You're going to lose 4 points from your running total, because the 20 alone doesn't score you anything. And there's 2 darts that have landed in the 5 section. Now, it doesn't matter if you land in the double 5, single 5, or treble 5. If the dart's in any of them numbers, in any section, you lose 2 points. So because you had 2 darts in the 5 and 1 in the 20, you're going to lose 4 points. Then you come up, you hit treble 20, and let's just say the last one sneaks in the 1. So on that visit there, you only get 1 point because you hit the 120, which is 3 points, but then you lose 2 points because of the single one. It's a very tough game, but it's, again, aiming you to stay straight in them 20s. And I'm punishing you for, like you say, you've hit a 1-2-1 there, and I'm only giving you a point for it, but I'm punishing you for that one. Your aim is to get a 25 points. As I say, you start at 10. The moment you get a 0, you're out the game. But every dart counts as points. That's the crucial part of it. And if you can just get a steady 60, you'll be all right. So, game number 14, the steady 20 from the website, swrdartscoaching.co.uk. Find the training library on there. There's loads of games in that training library now. But that is this month's game, number 14, the steady 20. So I hope you've enjoyed episode 24. It's been one that I've been tinkering with for a while. I've been meaning to get it out for a while. Obviously, at this point, I won't be putting any more podcast episodes out this year. What my plan is in January for episode 25, I am going to do a recap of the WDF World, and I'm also going to do a recap of the PDC Worlds. So I'm going to bundle them two together because I know in 23 I spoke about the my preview for the WDF Worlds. I didn't do too bad with some of the guesses there, but I'm going to do a double preview, a double review episode in episode 25, which will come out mid-January now. This one obviously will be coming out mid-December, so I'm going to aim for mid-January for that one. If you are after one-to-one darts coaching with a qualified full-time darts coach with experience of darts coaching in the last 7 years, find me online, swrdartscoaching.co.uk. All the information and booking sessions with me is on there. If you can't find the session you're after, or the session time, or the session slot, drop me an email. If there's a couple of you and you'd like to come up for long sessions, I do offer 2 people 2-hour, 3-hour sessions. The other day I had 3 people in for a 4-hour session. 4-hour session. So I do offer them as well. They just can't be booked via the website. You have to get in touch with me, and we do it via the web, via the emails and chatting over WhatsApp, etc. But yeah, I'm there. I help everyone. What we do in the session, as I've joked before on here, we do a little MOT of your darts, of your throw. Then we look at all your training. We look at everything as much as we can in a session. But of course, we're limited on the amount of time we have if you book a 60 minutes. The 60 minutes are ideal for them players who just want a little bit of confidence in knowing what they're doing, or a little bit of talent of what they're doing, shall we say. So, really appreciate your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. It is Christmas 2025, so I will wish you a Merry Christmas. I wish you a prosperous New Year, and hope that the darts are kind to you and good to you. And remember, just keep enjoying this game. It's one of the best games in the world. The moment we start getting frustrated and we start falling out of love with it, then we just push the game away. And no one should be doing that. Folks, take care. I'll speak to you on the next one.